It is time, ladies and gentlemen, to drift away into the Game Changer. I am indeed Nate the Effing Great, and it's that time of the week again. It is the Full Circle podcast, and the reason why it is because join me back again for round 2 is the one, the only, the charismatic man of Twitter itself, Mr. Fretz. How's it going, good sir?
Oh, I am Mr. Fretz. And because of that theme music there, and it just so happens to be the shirt that I'm wearing today, who wants to walk with Mr. Fretz?
Oh, we're going WWF instead of WWE. The F is back.
Walk with, oh yeah, suck it, World Wildlife Fun. Take that shirt with you hitting the panda with the steel chair. And walk with Fretz.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be reviewing the place where it all began again, WrestleMania 20. But before we get into that, I think we're going to shake it up just a little bit, you guys, because last week I made a proposal and I made an invite to Mr. Fretz to be a part of the Game Changing Network. It's basically going to be a network, but when Patreon gets up, so just get used to that. Yes, the page is still called the Game Changer Podcast, but it's going to feel like a network, be honest here. So, Mr. Fretz, it's almost like Hogan versus Rock, asking the question, yes or no?
I accept. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the newest member of the Game Changer Podcast, Mr. Wrestlemania. So you can definitely expect a lot of new content coming your way, you guys, and quite a bit of sharing from Mr. Fretz's great website. Definitely go check it out. Whether it's his own podcast, whether it's articles that he does, definitely check it out. It's going to be absolutely amazing. This is honestly one of the biggest ways to start off the show. Now we get into WrestleMania 20, where it all begins again. Opening package was really good. I enjoyed it. But we also had the Harlem Boys Choir singing America the Beautiful. Honestly, I got goosebumps when they sang this song. I literally kind of had this vibe that later, obviously, when people hear the music like that being that good, they think of one thing, and that being the Purge movies, because honestly, I listened to the way they sang it, and I think to myself, wow, this reminds me of, oh boy, glad that this did not happen around the same time.
You know, being a Canadian, like, normally I would say press fast forward, but, you know, it was gorgeous. You know, I know America was at a pretty tough time at this point in time. Like, I think were they at war with Iraq at this point?
I think they were, if I was not mistaken.
Yeah, it's you know, I'll agree with the goosebumps there. They're just an amazing choir. And can I take you to the Wayback Machine, Nate?
Oh, by all means, sir.
Well, first off, in that Where It All Began Again promo, we did see the first appearance of young baby Declan McMahon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that.
With Grandpa Vince and Dad Shane. And Declan was, I think Shane's got, like, three sons, and they are all the spitting image of Vince. Like, one of them looks exactly like Vince McMahon.
Jeez Louise.
It's scary. Like, I think there was a picture of them at the White House with name redacted, and yeah, it was just, it looked like Vince McMahon did when he was, like, in the 70s doing, like, Andre the Giant interviews. Yeah, and Declan also accompanied Shane to the ring at, I don't know, one of the WrestleManias, either the one where it was Taker or AJ or whoever the crap Shane fought last year. But, so, normally, I love going in the Wayback Machine because usually it's Attitude Era, late 90s, or, you know, times of my teenage / early adult years. This year I was about to turn 20, so whenever anyone asks me, hey Fretz, how old are you? I'm WrestleMania years old.
Oh.
So, yeah, so there we go. So in theaters in March 2004, Hidalgo, Agent Cody Banks 2,
Oh, jeez.
and the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Wow.
The number one song is Yeah by Usher. How about No? Video games, we have Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. Okay. Final Fantasy 11. It's no 7. Oh, BT Dub 7 remake on Switch next week. Pumped.
Ooh.
And Sonic Heroes.
Oh boy.
I'm an old school. I'm a purist. It's like 1, 2, 3 Knuckles, Mania, and yeah, the Sonic CD, maybe the GBA games, but I'm not a 3D guy when it comes to Sonic. I'm one of those. And for those who know about this particular storyline, this is the last pay-per-view of the Dave's Basement era.
Whew, man.
My buddy, so it's going to come for full circle here, and him and his dad actually have a bit of a, we'll take a shot, have a bit of an involvement in this, and I'm just going to leave that little popcorn there to settle.
Here we go.
Oh, by the way, once again, Wrestlemania is brought to you by Snickers Cruncher. Hungry? Crunch this.
And everybody take a shot for the Snickers references, because they've been doing it since then, and they're probably still doing it now. Nope, they are.
They are.
15 years later.
Snickers again.
Bite into a Slim Jim, grab a Snickers, and take a shot, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing to see how, even after 15 years, it's like, you can't get another candy bar besides Snickers. Like, but it's so catchy. It's so that. But what about Kit Kat bars? What about Reese's? And what about M&M's? I'm surprised that they have not tried something goofy with the M&M's characters.
Why not Butterfinger? Take that trademark off of Bart Simpson. He's had it for long enough.
There we go. I'd be down for that. Honestly, it would make sense. You could honestly have like a wrestling deal over a Butterfinger bar, and literally it just literally ends with AJ Styles just saying like, nobody better lay a finger off my Butterfinger. Why AJ Styles? Because I really don't need any other explanation than that. But
or it could be as finger poke would do.
Oh, that is true. That is very true. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, of course, as we mentioned before, WrestleMania 20 is basically happening in Madison Square Garden, where it all began again 20 years beforehand. And honestly, it's one of those events where it's like, okay, this ought to be very interesting to see how everything kind of comes down. I'm trying to remember who is the attendance record. I might have to pull this up really quick. Because it was in Madison Square Garden, like I said before, but the attendance record. I feel like every single year that they seemingly do these WrestleManias, they always try to be like, hey, we just set a new record for this attendance record, and blah, 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 blah. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, if we're doing a WrestleMania review, we might as well look at the record for this. What's the quote-unquote record for Madison Square Garden? Why not? Let's see here. A record of 20,000. Really? Wow. That's kind of sad, actually. From them going from 54,097 the previous year at WrestleMania 19 to go to 20,000 in WrestleMania 20, that's rough.
It's a small arena. I just looked up something myself here, but I couldn't find the attendance record, but I don't want to tell you what recording artist sold Madison Square out the fastest, because it'll just depress us and make me ashamed to be an Ontarian.
Oh gosh, I was about to say, if it's anything other than Lady Gaga, I don't want to hear it. But I already you said the key word, ashamed to be a Canadian. I think I know what it is. So we're
ashamed to be an Ontarian. So that narrows it down. Yeah. Stratford, Ontario. If anyone knows who I'm referring to now, let you speak now or forever hold your peace.
My piece is still saying. My piece is still saying. Let's talk about WrestleMania, huh? We kick off with the United States Championship matchup. John Cena versus the U.S. Champion, The Big Show. So basically, this is one of those matches. Okay, I see Fretz doing the whole deal. Yep, we have to mention this is back in Wood Life. It's your basic thugonomics. John Cena with the throwback. He had the hat.
My discipline is unforgiven. Got you backing up in the defensive position. Ass-sticking anthem. Heavyweight or bantam. Holding camps for ransom. The microphone phantom. Teams hit the floor in the new fight joint. Like a broken needle, keep you missing the point. We dominate your conference offense. That's no nonsense. My theme song hits. Get your reinforcements. I know the rest, but I'm not going there. I already punish my listener enough by singing in my podcast, especially when I covered WrestleMania X8 with Christian. I'll stop.
Well, it happens. Well, I mean, so obviously, John Cena, he comes out, he does a little rap, he does a deal basically talking about, I think one of the lines in here that I thought was actually kind of funny was he talked about Big Show. He said, there's no way I'm going to lose to this, King Kong ripoff. That's like Gary Coleman beating Patrick Ewing in a tip-off. I thought that was actually very clever. This was back when John Cena was superly entertaining. Even though I think, down the line people started to hate him a bit, anytime that he rapped, that was where people just started to really get reeled back in. It's like, oh yeah, he's actually entertaining. That's right. It's just his wrestling's not always that good. Trust me, guys. Later on, he gets better. Just give him time. For this matchup, honestly, kind of a meh kind of start off to Mania, because really all it was just Big Show dominating for the most part. They did do a reference to Sergeant Slaughter during the matchup because Big Show did the Cobra Clutch, which was actually pretty impressive. And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, a few years later, he would utilize that Cobra Clutch even more in one of probably the more devastating moves that Big Show probably will ever deliver. Holy cow. Okay, debatable. But, this matchup wasn't too crazy. This was, of course, the moment where Cena got Big Show up on his shoulders and he hit the attitude adjustment. 1, 2, kick out. And Cena, of course, is just like, oh, crap, that was not supposed to happen. So he decides to cheat to win, which honestly is one of those things where even back then I'm like, okay, so he's the babyface. And he's using one of the custom knucks that he used to beat Big Show, hit another attitude adjustment. 1, 2, 3. Cena's the new United States Champion. Again, guys, it gets better. Give him a year. It gets a little bit better. But it is kind of one of those things where it is crazy to think about the fact that he went from starting WrestleMania at 20 and then headlining WrestleMania in 21. But this matchup here, nothing too outstandish, like we said. It just was one of those things where oh, Cena can lift up the Big Show. Yay!
It was decent. I had a couple of Easter eggs in here. Cena was wearing a Mario 1-Up armband.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember that.
And the best line I think I got out of his rap was he's itching to beat the Big Show like a penis with an STD.
Oh, God, I remember that.
And I blame the Attitude Era podcast for this, but every time I watch an older WrestleMania, I keep my ears open for horns and vuvuzelas. Frig off with the horns, please. And we have a line in there about Big Show's frying pan hand, and Cena obviously forgetting his frying pan antidote. If anyone knows what that's from, win. And I liked it. This was Cena. Cena kind of had hit. This was his kind of coming out party. He was coming off of. He was injured, being eliminated in the Rumble in 2004.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he landed and he tweaked his knee. That's why he couldn't do the FU/AA really properly, and because Big Show was huge. He did it to say, "Oh, someone on SmackDown." It looked more like the Wasteland than the original FU that looked more a bit like a Death Valley Driver.
Right.
Cena had a moment at WrestleMania 19 in which he was gonna have a wrap off with Jay-Z, but I don't think he wasn't going to be there anyways, so it was like, oh, let's bring out some random guy. Oh, they didn't do that, so they brought out a couple of standees, like cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
That was during Heat, though, so...
Yeah. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, back when we had Heat and Velocity? Those were good times, but now we're just to the pre-show. Ooh.
The KFC Mountain Dew Spicy Chicken Pre-Show.
Might as well be at this point. I gave this matchup a solid C. It was one of those things, like I said, nothing too crazy, nothing too out of the ordinary. It was just, like Fretz said, just seen as coming out party. But it's still one of those things where it's like, it's a still good WrestleMania debut for Cena. Just not one of those ones where we're going to be like, oh, it's the greatest WrestleMania debut ever. No. It's average.
Yep, not too bad. What I do like is we have Evolution backstage next. And side note, did you know that Evolution was supposed to include someone who's going to be in this next match? Mark Jindrak.
Yes, I did know that. I remember that.
Yeah, and they even shot like vignettes and like the Evolution is a mystery song with the four of them walking off the airplane, and there's Jindrak. I figured, okay, that's a decent profile to put him in, because I was watching WCW during its latter days, and cheap plug for Mance Chapel, gift of the podcast, who's covering this right now. You brave man. He actually, this week he just did Spring Stampede, so he's approaching the David Arquette storyline. God have mercy, Mance.
let focus, positive. Evolution, backstage. Good promo.
Yes.
Really good promo.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I just liked how they went through the history of it. I think it was the same arena, Orton punted Foley down the stairs.
Oh, jeez.
And he was just like, it was at this, I took you out at this staircase, and Orton, good Orton, legend killer Orton. I hated him at this point, but I loved what he was doing.
Yeah, no, I definitely do agree with that. Yeah, they basically talked about his feud building up with Foley, where Foley tried to, try to get some kind of offense, but Evolution was always just beating him down. Then they called him Rock, and it seems like, it's a beating down. It seems like one of those situations where it's like, okay, they're putting all this deal here, they're making it so one-sided. It seems like Rock and Sock is going to pick up the victory here. But we're going to get into that a little bit later on, you guys. Don't you worry. And, of course, Orton had that classic line where he said, it all started here in Madison Square Garden. It's all going to start here again. And they had that trifecta, handshake deal, which I thought was kind of cool. It was one of those things where it's like, wow, Evolution is a united front. I like it.
Right on.
But yeah, you mentioned the next matchup. We had first of two. Yes, you heard that right. 2 four-way tag team matches, in which we had the first one, the defending champions Booker T and RVD defending against La Resistance, one of my favorite heel tag teams of all time, #FightMe, Garrison Cade and Mark Jindrak, and then the Dudley Boys.
Hey, Dudleyville's in New York City.
That is true. That's right. I remember that now.
From New York City. So that's where Dudleyville is. I thought that was somewhere between parts unknown and wherever he damn well pleases.
But basically this matchup, for me, I think the problem was that they had so many people packed into this matchup that not everybody got the chance to, shine as much until the very end. Nothing too crazy out of the ordinary. They did have the classic spots of, baby faces are getting heels, nope, heels are stopping. The ending was really good, though, where Booker T is able to hit the scissor kick, and then we get the Rob Van Dam frog splash to give him the victory. So Booker T, RVD retain their tag team titles. I will say this, that I preferred this four-way matchup compared to the latter one that we'll be talking about. But again, nothing too crazy out of the ordinary. If they would have made it a four-way elimination match, I think they could have gotten more out of it. But that's not what we got. We got this one. I gave it a C+, but like I said, it's not anything too crazy out of the ordinary. Some people will probably disagree with me. I don't know. My heart really wasn't into this matchup. It was just kind of like, it's just 4 teams thrown in together. Great.
Yeah, this was just the bathroom break match. I liked these teams. I mean, we looked at what could have been of Lance Cade, but Garrison Cade at this point? Okay, Mr. Hat. Like, what were they thinking with this one? Yeah, but I remember Lance Cade more so with his tag team with Trevor Murdoch, which I thoroughly enjoyed them. And then when he had his singles run, and tragically he's no longer with us. He was like what, 29, 30?
Yeah. I think that was, oh my gosh.
HBK Wrestling Academy. I think he was in the same class as like Daniel Bryan and all them. So it was what could have been. But I liked the scissors kick 5-star splash. I like because you see Rob Van Dam just fly into the screen. So it was kind of out of nowhere, like an RKO.
Mm-hmm. It was really good, like we said. Yeah. Anything else to add to this matchup? Because I don't know. Like I said, It wasn't too crazy.
It was a nothing match for me. I like what we have next, though.
Oh, man. And why might that be? Well, it features 2 Canadians fighting against each other. We have Christian versus Chris Jericho. First of all... Oh, go ahead.
Hang on, Nate.
Yes?
We had a backstage segment first.
Oh, crap. I forgot about this, and I wanted to forget about this.
You did?
Oh, boy.
I thought it was kind of funny. But I'll briefly cover it just for shits.
I'm going to take a piss. I'll be back.
Yeah. So Coach is backstage looking for Undertaker because reasons. You hear these noises coming from this closet, this back room. Out comes Gene. Out comes Bobby, both covered in lipstick and stuff. Like, we were just playing cards, and I miss those two. Gene and Bobby, man. And who comes out of this room afterwards? Moolah Young. And King just like, they're probably fighting Naked Twister or something. They're probably finishing this somewhere else right now. So let's just move on to 2 of my favorite Canadians. And I am disappointed we don't have that amazing Christian theme.
No, we got the better theme song.
You just had that, and the whole this thing they did. It's like, I'll bet you $1 Canadian. Are you sure about that, Christian? The Canadian dollar is crap today, and I think it was crap in 2004.
Yeah, basically what Fretz is referring to is that there was a storyline basically where Jericho and Christian made a bet with each other that they could sleep with either Trish or Lita before the other person could. But then during this whole deal, Chris Jericho started getting feelings for Trish, which then created a wedge between him and Christian. Then literally after that, as soon as Chris Jericho was trying to get into the whole deal with Trish, it seemed like things were going on. Christian was secretly doing a deal where she's getting hit on by Christian, which evolves into an intergender matchup, which honestly is probably one of the more uncomfortable times where I'll say, oh, okay, maybe the intergender thing in WWE is not a good idea, where basically Christian does like a clothesline, then the walls of Jericho to Trish, and Christian actually had like a really good promo deal. That he's such a bastard as a heel, but he's such a good bastard as a heel. It's just one of those things where he just shines as it.
He's not just a bastard. He's a creepy little bastard.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Thank you. I was hoping one of us would say that.
We're just friends. In the friend zone, man. Frick off. Please don't.
Frick off, because the Fretz said so. So yeah, this evolved into the match that we have here at WrestleMania. Honestly, this was probably one of my more favorite matches. Basically, it was going the way it should have gone. Jericho and Christian are just basically beating the hell out of each other. A lot of really good offense by Jericho, and then Christian would get some offense in as well. Couple attempts at the Walls of Jericho by Chris Jericho. Christian was able to get away from that, and honestly, it was going really good. Then we had a pair of nice puppies come into play in Trish Stratus. She comes in. I will say this one spot that actually really got me to like kind of cringe a bit was that Impaler DDT that Christian did to Jericho. I literally was like, oh jeez, because you heard the impact on it. Whew.
The execution. No, leave it to Edge, buddy.
Oh, trust me, we're going to talk about him during the show, too. You'll be surprised as to why. So basically, what ends up here is Trish tries to get Christian to lay off. Christian pulls Trish into the ring. She gets like blinded or something. I can't exactly remember what exact happened. Chris Jericho throws Christian out of the way. He's trying to tend to Trish. Trish does a huge elbow to the back of Chris Jericho's face. Roll up by Christian. 1, 2, 3. Christian gets the victory. Long victory, actually. I think the last time he won was at WrestleMania X7. Holy cow. This thing went full circle for him.
Take a shot.
So, yeah, honestly, this was a really good matchup between these guys. And it's the aftermath that really made it really good. I'm going to tell you this right now. The match itself, I gave a B+. It was really good. Definitely one of the matches where it's like, okay, we're starting to get some momentum. Everything's going good. Then we had the whole deal where Christian tries to get back in the ring while Trish is trying to console Chris Jericho. Jericho's trying to be like, no, get away, man, get away. Then we get the dreaded 1, 2 slaps in the face by Trish to Jericho. Christian hits a beautiful unprettier, and then we see basically the most heinous thing that you can have. You have the quote-unquote walking STD and the CLB making out and Frenching on top of the stage. Whoo, that was one of those things where it's like, oh wow, that's literally one of those things where it's just a giant middle finger to Jericho. That sucks. But honestly, it was one of those things where it's like, this was back then, it was a really good swerve. It really was. It was one of those things where it's like, well, we thought Trish was going to be with Jericho. Well, apparently she wants this little bit of CLB.
CLD.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. Delete. Cut that, and it's in. So, I have to say, this was the sexiest heel turn ever. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
no comment. Let's go. Yeah. And I'm saying through it, when we see this, it's like, Torontonians stick together, except you, Slack. Screw you, Slack. Yeah, he won't hear this.
Probably not.
No, but it's, yeah, I liked, as soon as I saw Trish, like, I was watching this, and as soon as I saw Trish come out in that gold coat, I'm just like, she's turning heel. I don't even know if my buddy Dave was in there with me, because like I was just there hanging out at his house, and he was on night shift delivering bread, I think, or something like that. So he came in, saw me, and caught up before he went to work, and his dad came down. And it's like, oh hey, yeah, finish watching this, take your tape home, and lock the door, blah blah blah. But one of us are watching, and it's like, yeah, I bet you this is going to happen. Then slap. They were vicious looking slaps too.
No kidding, poor Jericho.
Like when I met Trish last year, I'm glad I didn't get those 5 hands across my face. She just called me champ because I walked in with a title. So, oh, nice.
Well, if I do get a chance to see her at WrestleCon, side note, cheap plug, yes, I will be at WrestleCon for both the Friday and the Saturday. If I do meet Trish, I'll just definitely say, like, oh, you know what, me and my friend, we were actually reviewing WrestleMania 20. We were actually talking about your heel turn, and he described it as one of the sexiest heel turns ever.
Delete.
I'll put the word in my. I'll put the word in my friend. How about that? I won't say my friend Fretz. We'll just nix out the Fretz part. Unless she's listening. Hi, Trish. Good to see you.
Turned it off by now.
Oh man! So we have to move on. Unfortunately, damn it. So we get a backstage deal with The Rock and Sock connection, and this is where I get a little bit excited because Mick Foley, he talks about, returning to Madison Square Garden. Of course, we get The Rock, who comes in and basically just does what The Rock does, and that's be absolutely entertaining. From him basically saying to Lane, no, the buffet is closed, to him mocking, to talking about Hurricane and Rosie, who was a superhero in training. Let that sink in for a minute. Basically, they have like a hamburger or something like that, and Rock just is like, "Oh, look, we got the Hamburglar and Grimace." it's just one of those things where it's just so funny. And then we get him talking about Hall of Famers, Superfly Snuka, Don Morocco. Then he, of course, gets the crowd up. And this is one of the few times where you actually see them do a promo, and they actually basically say, like, hey, we're going to show you the people. And it's one of those things where, like, okay, this is legit live that they're doing this. So, of course, Rock has the line of, get the shot of the millions. And ends it with him doing the classic line of, if you smell what The Rock and Sock is cooking. Yes, oh my gosh. And this gets me hyped up because we get the handicap match. Evolution versus Rock and Sock Connection, 3-on-2. And also, what's really cool is that during this matchup, we had Jim Ross say that Mick Foley wanted to wish a happy birthday to his son Huey, which I thought, okay, that's really cool. And then Jerry Lawler, of course, had to go and be Jerry Lawler. It's like, say something, son. You're about to see your daddy get his butt kicked. I'm like, oh boy, Jerry Lawler, why? But
yeah, no.
but as far as this match goes, for me, it was definitely better than I remember it. Actually, I remember watching this younger, and I was just kind of like, okay, this is kind of cool. But as I got older, I kind of watched this matchup now, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, a full nostalgia, Evolution, Rock and Sock Connection, yes. Flair getting backdropped on the outside, and then Foley just diving out of nowhere with an elbow. That was cool. Rock able to hit, the people's elbow. Oh no, before we get into that, oh my God, was Ric Flair just hamming it up during this matchup.
So good.
Basically, he actually took down, I think it was Batista or Randy Orton. They took down The Rock. Flair basically just says, like, oh, give him to me. He does the Flair, he tries to do the Flair elbow, where he goes from one side. He's trying to do the strut during the whole entire thing. The Rock just kicks up. He's like, dude, no. Boom, smacked to the face. Then he hits the people's elbow on Ric Flair, but not before delivering a Rocky strut to Flair before dropping the elbow. Rock bottom to Randy Orton. Mick Foley gets involved, and we see the double arm DDT to Batista, which was kind of a surprise to me. It was like, oh, geez, he just took out the Animal Batista. Bet you won't see that happen nowadays, but still pretty awesome. He goes for the Sacco on Randy Orton. Orton with an RKO out of nowhere for the 1, 2, 3. One of those things where it's like, sucks. Overall, I gave it a B+. Again, it was the after stuff that kind of really got me. Rock looked like he was just pissed off. He looked like he was going to probably hit Foley or something like that, but Foley actually stand up, and he got a standing ovation from the crowd. So, mad props to the Madison Square Garden crowd for, saying, hey, welcome home, but hey, you did a great job. And I think that's the second or third time Foley probably has gotten an ovation at WrestleMania, because the only other few times I could think of, one was involving the hardcore match with him and Edge, which might be one we'll have to do in a later future time, because holy crap, that's a match worth talking about. There's this occasion here. I want to say there's one other occasion where he got a standing ovation. I could be wrong, but people love Foley. What can I say?
Exactly. I think the one you might be referring to could even be WrestleMania 2000.
Maybe.
The Fatal 4 and McMahon in every corner match.
Yeah.
Or even he had a match at 15 against the Big Show where he was like the winner of the match is the referee of the Austin Rock match. Mm-hmm. Of course, Foley gets taken out. The stretcher job, chokeslam on a couple of chairs. Could have been then. I think the last Mania match he had was against Edge. Yeah, that sounds about right. But I loved that this was just a little teeny sneak preview of a plug about what was to come at Backlash. And I might be covering some backlashes. So I loved, like, Flair was just on form tonight. Classic Flair, the begging no, like the chops, the strut, and I hated Evolution at this point in time. Like, despised them because Triple H. Like, I've never been a Triple H fan. Maybe only recently with the whole NXT deal if I'd come around on them. But looking back at this, I'm just like, they're just so damn good. And seeing the beginning of Orton and Batista's careers of what was to come, like, with the benefit of foresight, damn.
Yeah, I mean, everything changed in a matter of a year after WrestleMania 20, and that's the crazy thing about this entire thing. Trust me. I mean, we talked about Cena earlier. Batista would go on to face Triple H for the world title. Undertaker would be challenged by Randy Orton. Oh, man, I mean, 21, that was a good one, too, especially when you look back on it from 20. Like you said, 20 was definitely a place where it all began, but it definitely was one of those things where it's like, you know, you think they're good now. Wait until later.
Oh, Ooh. Yeah. That's, and you know, Cena against JBL for the I'm going to have a hot take about JBL when we get to him here, but
oh God,
oh boy,
man. Next up, we have the. Unless you have anything else you wanted to add for the matchup.
No, Hall of Fame.
Oh man, this was a huge class. Holy cow! Honestly, I think that it's only due justice that you talk about the Hall of Fame, because I think this is where we started actually getting some of the emotions started pouring out of this matchup. I mean, my God.
And something that comes right after the match, it's after the Hall of Fame. We can skip that match. But this Hall of Fame class, Sergeant Slaughter, Greg the Hammer Valentine, who I met, kind of grumpy, but I understood why. Don Morocco, Big John Studd, Junkyard Dog, Jesse Ventura. Let's put a president in the White House. Tito Santana, Harley Race, Bobby the Brain Heenan. And he's like, when he showed him, he was like, I wish Monsoon was here. Like, oh yeah, I'm already feeling it. Whew, okay. I wrote down the name. Billy Graham. I'm like, Billy. I'm like, Billy who? Not Billy Gunn. That's this year. It's like,
Superstar Billy Graham. He lifts
barbell plates. He eats T-bone steaks. He's sweeter than German chocolate cake. Superstar Billy Graham. And I think this was the year Mean Gene wasn't inducted this year, but he was there introducing them. I remember him, because this was a smaller, more intimate setting of the Hall of Fame. It looked like it just took place in, like, the hotel ballroom or something.
Yeah.
Not the arena where all the fans can hoot and holler and chant shit. Like, the Hall of Fame, I think, should be intimate, if you ask me.
Yeah, that happened next year, and trust me, there were some actually really good moments there, especially with Bobby Heenan. Oh my God, I think that this is one of those times where it's like, this is the only time the Hall of Fame should happen, is just so that Bobby Heenan can roast fans. Just going to say that right now. But the celebrity. Yeah, but
the celebrity wing.
Yep. Who got inducted this year? Pete Rose.
He's not getting into the baseball things. So why not put him here for dressing up as a chicken and getting tombstoned by Kane, and then stink-faced by Rikishi with the line that he went. It's like, hey, Rikishi, do you still use that cheap-ass Aqua Velva on your ass? I should hope Rikishi put something on there if you're going to be shoving it in someone's face, and Jim Ross is going like, oh yeah, he had the ribs, he had the corn, by God, the stink face.
Yeah, oh jeez. But as we mentioned before, this was a great Hall of Fame class, and so many emotions poured in on this. Unfortunately, of course, during this time, Big John Studd and JYD passed away before they could reach this opportunity. But they were represented by Big John Studd's son, and JYD's daughter.
Son and JYD's daughter.
Yeah. Yep. So that was really cool, and they both looked like they were happy to celebrate the memories of their father. So that was really cool to see that. So we go from that to, something, I'm going to talk about this because you had to put me through that whole Mean Gene, Bobby Moolah, and Mae Young deal. So, so we go into the Playboy evening gown matchup. Basically, we have two Playboy cover girls in Sable and Tori taking on two quote-unquote wannabe cover girls in Stacy Keibler and Miss Jackie. Honestly, I will say this about this matchup. It is very short and is definitely one of those things where it's like, okay, we know that this was just one of those things that was just there for the guys. And trust me, this is not the worst matchup of the night. We're going to get into that very later on. In fact, we might need to take a commercial break before we can get into that. But yeah, basically, Sable, Tori, and Stacy, they unrobed early. Jackie didn't want to. She got forced basically to have her clothes ripped off. I will say this, that it got funny because there was a point and there's a camera spot where we see, I think it was Stacy Keibler getting undressed, and we see Tasha saying, I feel like I need to join in on this. And you see him just slowly start trying to, and Cole's just like, no. And, oh God, there's a joke about a pencil. It's like, what the hell? It's kind of one of those things where I'm like, did I hear that right? And I hear it a couple times. I'm like, it's so disgusting, but it's honestly kind of funny. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, there's some humor about this at least. I also made a note here where I basically said Tori Wilson is my hero during this matchup because she at least brought some of the wrestling into this matchup compared to the other three. No disrespect, but she's going into the Hall of Fame first. Just saying. Basically, SmackDown wins with Tori doing a roll-up and on Jackie. I gave this matchup, and people are going to hate me, I gave it a B-. Maybe it was because of the fact that the hormones were going crazy. Maybe it was the fact that Tori at least held the match together. Maybe it was the humor on commentary with Cole and Taz. At this point, it was just one of those things where it's like, somehow this was kind of entertaining and kind of enjoyable to watch. What can I say? This is one of those times where I actually appreciated this matchup, even though it was just a show of flesh. And hey, thing about it is that we barely got Sable in this matchup, which was probably a blessing in disguise considering her, her age and probably her stuff. But all right, so we can move on from that matchup. We go into a backstage segment with Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, and I will say this, that God rest these men's souls. This was probably one of my this is honestly one of my favorite backstage segments because Eddie Guerrero actually does a deal where he's saying, hey, I'm proud of you, man. You're going to go out there and you're going to do your best. You're going to do great. I'm proud of you, man. Win, lose, or draw. And, of course, as soon as he says the L word, Benoit's like, hey, no, you don't say that to me. Don't even spend that. And he's like, well, come on, man. You're facing Shawn Michaels. You're facing Triple H. Nobody's expecting you're going to win. Nobody really believes in you. And, of course, that fires off Benoit where he basically just says, I believe in me, and if nobody else believes in me, that's not my problem because I believe that I'm going to win tonight. And I love it because then Eddie just starts chuckling and Benoit's like, what the hell are you laughing about? And Eddie's just like, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. I wanted to see that fire. I wanted to see that Wolverine that I took on in Japan. I wanted to see the Chris Benoit that I know is going to tear apart Shawn Michaels and Triple H. And basically, a little bit of foreshadowing, ladies and gentlemen, where Benoit says, you're going to leave with the WWE title, I'm going to leave with the world title. And best closing line that Eddie said, I believe, Chris. Oh, man.
Right here, man. Pure fire. Like, I believe in me. I believe. Just going off. I mean, oh, my God. Eddie's loving. He's poking the bear. He's loving it.
Oh my gosh. I think that was always the crazy thing about, the chemistry between Eddie and Benoit is that they could put on really good matches when they were together, but when they did like backstage deals, they were so scarce that when you see them, it's like, wow, you never really see Eddie kind of mess with Benoit a bit. And you kind of, almost forget the fact that, hey, these guys are really good friends behind the scenes. So it's one of those things that makes you appreciate these kind of moments even more. Now, of course, that's more than we could say about the next matchup, because we had the first ever Cruiserweight Open, in which basically we had two guys in the ring, and then everybody who gets eliminated by pinfall, submission, disqualification, or countout, it's basically a gauntlet match. It's like a huger version of a gauntlet matchup. We had Chavo Guerrero defending his title against Nunzio, Jamie Noble, Tajiri, Akio, Funaki, Shannon Moore, Ultimo Dragon. In my notes, I have Ultima Dragon. I don't know why. Maybe it's for some other reason. Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr. What can we really say about this matchup? Honestly, I think that this is one of the more disappointing, because I remember watching it as, again, it's one of those things where I can flashback between watching as a kid and watching as an adult. It's one of those things where it's like, wow, even back then they really didn't care about the cruiserweights, did they?
No, they were relegated to Velocity, and I always looked at the Velocity spoilers and say, okay, am I going to watch it this week? I'm like, hey, Sean O'Hare's on the show, Paul London's on the show, I'm good. There we go. And speaking of Paul London, okay, I was a big mark for him back in the day. I swear he was in the match graphic for this match, and either he got injured or he wasn't in the match, or I'm thinking of WrestleMania 21. But do you know... what happened there? Do you know who Akio became?
Would that be the... Dun, 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 call me All-American, I'm a redneck through and through, Jimmy Wang Yang?
Yep. Who was in a tag team with Jamie Noble in WCW?
Ah, so again, it kind of goes full... Well, not really. Not in this case.
Half circle.
Let's go with half circle.
Yeah, take half a shot. And Ultimo Dragon had a little bit of a slip, tripping on his cape on the stage.
I remember seeing those, especially in Botchamanias, where they just show him falling. But WWE editing always finds a way to make things just look like, oh, that never happened. So the way that I watched it on the network, it didn't even show it. So give them props for that.
No, I still have the VHS that I taped live at the buddy's house. And who was Rey Mysterio dressed up as, Nate?
That would be the Quickster himself, the Flash.
Yep, and that's all I can say about this match is just, finisher after finisher, a side DDT, guillotine choke, Nunzio getting some chance in the crowd.
Oh, that's true, that's right. Oh, can we also mention the fact that Funaki, SmackDown's #1 announcer, was basically eliminated in a blink of an eye. Literally, it's like, hey, crossbody. Jamie Noel's like, nope. 1, 2, 3. Funaki's like, darn it. Funaki. Also, Funaki, #1 announcer on pay-per-view. Let's just say that right now. Shout out to Funaki. But yeah, Nunzio actually got some pretty good reception for the crowd. But I think also it had to do with the fact that he was part of Full-Blooded Italians. And, he played that character very well. I loved Nunzio in Full-Blooded Italians.
Oh, wait, no, I was clearing my throat. Sorry. No, he's from... excuse me. Yeah, he's from New York, so,
Another hometown boy welcoming. I will also say that this was another one of those matches where I watch it and I think to myself, God, I was such a fan of Billy Kidman. Still am a bit fan of him. I love the way he does a shooting star press. I love the BK bomb as well. I think that him as Cruiserweight Champion is always good. I think his heel run that he did was just very dastardly and also just very underrated. Honestly, it was just one of those times where I'm like, oh man, Billy Kidman, this is awesome. Oh, he gets eliminated. Well, you know what? At least you got a deal. I get it. It's basically building up to the feud between Chavo and Rey. Side note here, Akio actually got eliminated via Green Mist from Tajiri. They just basically said, well, it looks like Akio's been eliminated because he got blinded by the Green Mist and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, wait a minute, it's supposed to be 10 guys. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's only like 7 guys that have been eliminated. And then they mentioned Ikea. I was like, oh, that sucks. Yeah, then of course we have the match between Rey Mysterio. And literally this match, how can I describe these final few moments? Literally, it's Rey Mysterio beating the ever-living crap out of Chavo Classic. And then it basically costing him in the end because Chavo Classic was the difference maker, helping Chavo Jr. retain his Cruiserweight Championship. This was a bit of a stinker. I actually even forgot to grade it. I'm going to come up with this on the fly right now. I'm going to say C-, unfortunately. It had some moments that were great, but it's just one of those matches where it was like, hey, let's get everybody in the pool. Okay, out of the pool now, everyone.
Yeah, I got nothing to say here except that Chavo is using Eddie Guerrero's WCW Latino World Order theme.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, they've done some weird editing with that for DVD distributing because some have done that deal. Then there's another one that actually does like the actual Chavo Guerrero theme song. It's really weird how the editing thing for that goes. But oh boy! All right, we're gonna take a call. Cold. Nice long break because the next thing we're going to be talking about is going to be, it's going to be tough. This is going to be tough. So bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. We will be right back talking about probably the dumpster fire of the night, if not the dumpster fire of all of WrestleMania. So stay tuned. We'll be back.
Check out the guys over at Eclectic Media Project. They bring you podcasts such as Musically Challenged. Whose podcast is it anyway? Want to hear something interesting? And their newest podcast, Page 3.14 News. Check them out on Podbean and iTunes at Eclectic Media Project. On their website at www.eclecticmediaproject.com. Check them out as they are the home with a little something for almost everyone.
Hey guys, this is Nate the Effing Great. Hey, have you ever wanted to be a champion but can't seem to really find the money and the time to get a championship belt? Well, you know who's a really good friend of mine? AJ from AJsBelts.com. These guys have a large assortment of championship belts, from classic belts to the modern day belts to championship belts you would not even believe. And guys, like I said, they work with you very well. With an awesome layaway program, there is no way that you can beat these guys' prices as well as these guys' deals, especially when you can give them a little bit of money every now and then until you can get that championship gold. Coming from a guy who's a champion and a game changer, I'm indeed Nate the Effing Great. I'm representing AJsBelts.com, proud friends of the Game Changer Podcast. Welcome back to the Full Circle Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am Nate the Effing Great, being joined here by Mr. Fretz, and God help us, we're going to be talking about this matchup. It is Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar 1 with Stone Cold Steve Austin as the guest referee. Now, to be fair, the build-up was honestly really, really good. Brock Lesnar cost Goldberg the Rumble matchup. Goldberg cost Brock the WWE title. It is kind of one of those situations where refs are just like, yeah, we're not exactly very keen on being a part of this matchup, so no. So Vince McMahon was just trying to be like, oh, yeah, this match is not going to happen, and Stone Cold is just like, yeah, we want to see this. Vince is finally like, all right, fine, you're the guest referee then. Of course, Austin's just like, I'll take it as a judge, you kidding me? Then we have Brock stealing Stone Cold's ATV. Stone Cold got it back. Then we get into the match itself. Of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin gets a huge pop. Yay! Then we get Brock, and then Goldberg, and Fretz is opening up a can. God help us. What can we say about this matchup? Okay, so the crowd could not give two bits of a rat's ass about this matchup. You hear them just, chanting, na 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 na, hey hey goodbye. They're chanting Austin. They're chanting you sold out. Literally because basically they knew both of these guys' contracts were up. Goldberg didn't want to resign because he didn't like the creative direction WWE was going, and Brock Lesnar was going to go be a pro football player in the NFL. What a great storyline career he had in the NFL. Let's just forget that ever happened, ladies and gentlemen. Although we could make note that it was playing for the Minnesota Vikings, so if they really sucked, that's probably why. So, match itself was just them just grabbing each other and just doing this and yelling at each other and literally think it's Godzilla versus King Kong. As basically, you take the dolls of King Kong and Godzilla. That's literally how this match felt like until Goldberg hits a spear, and then Brock Lesnar hits an F5, and then Goldberg hits a spear and a jackhammer, and thank God this matchup is over. Goldberg leaves, Brock Lesnar is just in the ring, everybody's just saying, hey, goodbye, bye-bye. Brock Lesnar does a double bird to the crowd, and then he does it to Stone Cold, who gives him a stunner. Goldberg comes in, celebrates with Stone Cold, who gets a stunner himself. Everybody can go happy with the fact that it's Stone Cold Steve Austin being Stone Cold Steve Austin and basically saying, yeah, you may have won, but you're still getting stunned by me. Straight up F was this matchup. This was a failure of a matchup. This just sucked beyond compare. Surprisingly enough, they got better about 10 plus years later, which is really saying something, honestly. Oh, God, this was bad.
Yep. I had to open up some liquid courage through this match. Thank God it's my day off, because I'm having a beer at 11:40 in the morning. The less said about this, the better. Just the crowd was just all over it, and the Pritchard coincidence, he covered this show last week. Cease and desist, Conrad Thompson. Seriously, dude. I mean, he just talked about this dumpster fire and that, okay, Stone Cold's got to do something to send the crowd home happy, or else this is going to be a long night. The Survivor Series 2016 in my hometown-ish, Toronto. Like, that was the shocker of the decade. Like, even, Corey Graves, like, there's a spear, and it's like, what? What? Spear? Oh, my God! And the shock, you see the shocked fans, and yeah, they got better, but this, my goodness, like, I wish I went to the can during that match.
Jeez. So we can move on. Vince McMahon comes out, and he thanks WWE Universe. He thanks the fans for making WrestleMania where it all began again. Blah, 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 blah. The less we talk about this, the better. Vince McMahon loves his fans. Keep that in mind for the next, 15, 20 some odd years, because I'm sure he still loves the fans, and he still will thank them. So, we have the other Fatal 4-Way Tag Team matchup for the WWE Tag Team titles. Like I said, this is the lesser one that I do not exactly enjoy. We had the team of Sky Tani and Rikishi defending against the APA, the Basham Brothers, and the self-proclaimed world's greatest tag team, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin.
Real world's greatest tag team?
Oh, Sky Tani and Rikishi?
No.
I know.
Shelton Benjamin.
I know. This matchup, like I said, it just was kind of there. There's another potty break matchup, in my opinion. I didn't really enjoy it too much, but I see Fretz just giving me the shake of the head. So, by all means, Mr. Fretz, your side of the story.
Bashams, what the hell were you? I mean, this was just after the Shaniqua S&M gimmick. The lesser said about that, the better. But I have right here, APA. Love me some APA. And this was right before Bradshaw became JBL.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the worst gimmick transitions I have ever seen. From Badass Texan to Ted DiBiase ripoff. Like, I hated JBL for forever after that. Like, I think he could have gone with maybe like a Stan Hansen-esque badass, can't stop this guy, but maybe he would have got too much heel, not heat, like heel cheers, but yeah, no. And the underrated talent of the Basham, if you look up the Basham Brothers stuff in OVW, they were great. So, yeah, we see the Worm and the anticlimactic match and blah, blah, blah. Party pyro, whatever.
Yeah. Rikishi basically sits on one of the Bashams, and that's it. 1, 2, 3. And then they all and then they dance. And yeah, just C-. Blah, blah, blah. We get a vignette of our good buddy Edge. Yeah, he's coming back. This was honestly one of those things where it's like, yes, it's awesome. He's coming back from neck surgery. It's going to be great to see him back. But you'll also know that he actually did a promo talking about that where he, spent a year out of action with a broken neck, and then as soon as he came back, he broke his wrist. And it's like, God, that was just a rough year for Edge from going from one injury to another. It just sucked. Because you remember his early part of 2004 when he came back, he had that cast on, and that was how he defeated Kane at Backlash.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that.
A big red monster. He's big. He's tough. Edge, eat my cast. Boom. Oh!
I'm Cowboy Bob Orton, bitch.
I'm Cowboy Bob Orton. Eh, bitch? Oh, my gosh.
Put a nut on there.
There we go. It's full circle. Take a drink, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so then we had Jesse the Body Ventura. He came out, and of course he's still talking about his presidency deal, but he also gets to interview the current president of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, where he talks about, yes, I'll financially back you. It would be a huge, huge donation. I think the less that we talk about this, the better. Moving on. All right, let's start. Oh, jeez, we're getting into this one? Oh, yes. God. Oh, man. This is where WWE got a little risque, but also took a huge deal. And, oh, my gosh. Huge props to both of these women. We have the title versus hair matchup in which Molly Holly was challenging Victoria. So, do I need to explain this matchup? Basically, Molly Holly loses. She loses her hair. And that sums it up. I actually really loved this matchup. I liked the chemistry between Molly Holly and Victoria. It basically did show how badly Molly Holly wanted to, win the title. How badly she wanted to keep her hair. I also remember she actually did a promo on one of the DVD sets where she talks about how, she talks a little bit about how she was like the longest reigning women's champion of this century, about how she's, really made her hair to the softest, longest that she's ever been, making it an emotional deal. But yeah, like I said, it was a really good matchup between the two of them. There even came a point where Molly Holly thought, I'm going to basically beat Victoria with her own move. She goes for the Widow's Peak. And this is where it was her downfall. Victoria counters into a backslide for the 1, 2, 3. You hear the music, and immediately you see Molly Holly just like, oh crap.
Nope.
Yep. She
books it.
Yep. She books it out of there. She tries to get beat down Victoria and tries to get the Clippers to work for her. But I'm guessing somebody was smart enough to be like, hey, let's just unplug this thing so that way this doesn't happen. Then Victoria did a whole deal where she sprayed something in Molly's eyes, bashed her on the table. Molly Holly's out for the time being. Gets strapped into the chair, a barber's chair, mind you. What Hannibal Lecter crap is this? And literally starts shaving Molly's head off. And she does this whole deal where Victoria's just taking Molly's hair, just sprinkling it on her lap, and you just see Molly just, screaming. She is just hell-bent. She's just not at all happy about the fact that she is losing her hair. It's just one of those things where it's like, oh, geez, this is real. This is real as real gets. I gave it a solid B. This was a really good matchup. Probably one of my more favorite women's matches in all of WrestleMania.
Yeah, I'm with you there. This was phenomenal. This was entertaining. The wrestling itself was okay, but I liked everything about it. And I'm looking at that barber. It's like, is that Ricardo Rodriguez? It wasn't.
Oh, thank God. Oh, man.
And I'll say that I had a low-key crush on Molly Holly, even when she had the head shaved. Like, I'm not going to lie here. And Victoria was still using all the things she said by tattoo.
Honestly, I will say that's my favorite theme song she's ever used.
And how suited is this is a song about a young woman who has a lesbian feelings for her friend in a society that was basically outlawing it and shaming it. So applying that to a wrestler who's supposed to be like a psychopath, I don't know. I like the song. It's a good song.
Yeah.
And I think, Molly's in the Hall of Fame now, right?
She is. She's now a Hall of Famer.
Okay, Victoria, get in there. And do you know what Victoria's actual first appearance was? This is fun.
Oh, man. Her first appearance in WrestleMania or her first appearance in WWE?
Ever.
I believe somebody said that she's one of the hoes in Godfather's Hoe Train.
Yep. SummerSlam 2000, when the Godfather became the Good Father, she accompanied Scotty 2 Hotty and Rikishi to the ring because I think Good Father put her through a table or did something to her, but first thing he does is just grab her by the face and shove her down because, I'm the Good Father now. This is, hoes are beneath me. And throughout most of this entire match, we see Jerry Lawler having a conversation about panties.
Oh, right.
And the fact that Molly wore, or at least for some of her matches, wore the granny panties. And not a lot to talk about. I'm like, hey, let's talk about wrestling here. And I'm looking at this hair thing. Where the hell was Brutus Beefcake?
That is a fair question. That really is a fair question. If anything, Brutus Beefcake should have been the one by the barber's chair. He just had his clippers just ready to go.
And then King had this line about when they put her in the chair, they're like, is this a vibrating chair?
Yeah.
And I'm immediately reminded of there's a scene from Bruce Almighty. If you know what scene I'm referring to, we can move on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is a PG show. Wait, I've been swearing. No, it's not. Wait, what a trooper. Yeah. It was her idea to go through to get her head shaved. So, props to Sinead O'Connor. I mean, Molly Holly right there. So,
shout out to Molly Holly for being a trooper and for being absolutely amazing, and also for doing the Crash Holly walk during Evolution. That was amazing.
Oh, dude, there's enough feels coming later.
Yes.
Stop.
All right. Well, we're getting into more feels because the next matchup we have to talk about is the WWE Championship matchup. Kurt Angle challenging Eddie Guerrero. Whew. Okay, first of all, promo, very well done. I will say this, that if they were going to talk about the whole, Real American needs to be the champion deal, Kurt Angle was the best person to have for that. Just the way that they made him look. He looked like a bastardly villain. Hall of Famer Kurt Angle. Holy crap, that was awesome. Also, you deserve better than Baron Corbin, but that's a side note for a different time. Match itself, I think they're going to swerve us. I hope to God that you're right. Match itself, whoo boy howdy. Let me put it like this. My friend Max and I, whenever we have a time where things just really get crazy and things are just so good, we make the joke of, oh, I need a cigarette. Wrestling Orgasm 101 meets this matchup. Holy cow. Great mat wrestling style between these two, and a lot of people are not expecting that from Eddie Guerrero. Holy crap. Then when they get into the technical stuff, whoo, it gets even better. Gets even better. 3 amigos, German suplexes. You just, just beautiful, beautiful. Eddie Guerrero hits a frog splash finally. 1, 2. Kurt Angle kicks out. We see the classic ankle lock deal. Eddie Guerrero rolls it, and Kurt Angle's on the outside. Eddie decides, I'm going to try to get my boot off, so maybe that'll make it easier. And just the classic, I will say this, one of my favorite parts of this matchup is that deal where Kurt just looks in the ring. Eddie he's trying to still get his boot off, and he looks over at Kurt, he just goes, oh shit. It's just that reaction he has. Here's Kurt Angle, runs in, goes to the ankle lock, oh, the boot slips off. Kurt's like, okay, what the hell? Eddie with a small package, using the ropes, mind you, but still awesome. 1, 2, 3. Eddie Guerrero retains the WWE title. Very well done matchup. Solid A. Mr. Fretz, give me a minute. Talk about your side.
Well, okay, I was a big, I've been a big Kurt Angle mark since day one-ish. At this point in time, like, I was confused about Eddie Guerrero. I'm like, okay, you're a babyface, but you're acting like a heel. Should I hate you? Should I love you? I'm laughing at you right now because you're so damn funny, but, dude, you're against my boy Angle. And the benefit of foresight, I became an Eddie fan not too long after this. I liked the irony of Kurt Angle coming out on the stage and watching the head shaving still going on.
Oh, that's right.
Bringing me back to Judgment Day 2002 against Edge and the "You're bald, you're bald" chants. And the storyline, like, sometimes I don't mind when real life meets kayfabe and you had, like, the drug addict versus the gold medal. You had the dueling chant of "Let's go Angle, Angle sucks." Great chain wrestling, and this is when I put my little notebook down and just enjoyed the match because it was, oh my god, yeah. You said everything that I was about to say, like German suplexes, frog splash, ankle lock, the boot moment harkens back to. I was reminded of two things: of Zach Gallen and there was a Kevin Nash versus HBK match. I think it was '96 where Nash is attacking. It was Mad Dog Vachon in the crowd, and he pulls his leg off. Oh, it's a fake leg, and Roddy Piper did the same thing. So, yeah, just A+.
It was just that damn good.
Deals.
Now we go into the next matchup, which is the warm-up before the main event, which I will tell you guys this, spoiler alert, Mr. Fretz is going to be covering this because this is a really, really good matchup. But we go into The Undertaker versus Kane. Build up again. Really, really good. Kane basically burying Undertaker at Survivor Series. Then Kane gets spooked by all these premonitions, all these deals with The Undertaker. And it all culminates here at WrestleMania. Kane is, of course, just at the deal where he's like, you're not coming back. I buried you alive. Lights go out. First thing we hear, oh, yes! Out comes...
Oh, man, there's a lot of feels here.
Out comes Paul Bearer with Druids, and, oh, man, those Druids definitely knew how to just make it even more creepier than it needed to be. And just that line from Paul Bearer where he's like, my son, you're no son of mine. And what was really weird about this is that when I was a kid, I thought that Paul Bearer actually drank from the urn, but then I just realized that he just kissed it or something like that. I don't know. I thought there was like maybe some kind of elixir or something that made him like the all. I thought that Paul Bearer was basically the devil, I think, at this point in my life, where it was just literally like, he's a creepy dude. He's evil. He looks evil. I was raised weird. Shout out to my parents. I'm not I'm not knocking on them. It's just, never mind. Moving on. So we get the classic Dead Man Undertaker coming out to the the Rest in Peace theme music. Of course, Kane at first is just like, he's not coming back, and then as soon as he sees the Undertaker, he's like, oh, is this real? Even when the bells sound, he's just screaming, "You're not real! You're not real!" And he has his eyes closed, and he goes closer and closer, touches him. Undertaker's just like, boy, did what? Boom, boom, punching, going crazy. This felt more of like a nostalgia match than anything. Nothing too crazy about it. Kane hit a chokeslam during this matchup, and he just seemed like, oh, I got this one. I told you not to come back. He's trying to do the whole arm up deal, and then Undertaker sits up, and Kane turns around. He's like, oh, crap. So, of course, it eventually goes into Undertaker hitting a chokeslam, tombstone, 1, 2, 3, 12-0 at WrestleMania. Undertaker's streak lives on. Nothing too substantial about this matchup. Later years, again, it gets better. It gets a lot better. I think that after this small little hiccup, the matches just got better and better, and of course, the streak just got larger and larger and larger. I gave it a solid C. A bit of an average matchup. Nothing too crazy. Fretz?
I think it was just supposed to be booked like that. Like when I was listening to Pritchard, he was just like he was having reservations about becoming the Dead Man, but you could become the Dead Man but still work wrestle like the American Badass.
Right.
Me being like, Taker was one of the first wrestlers I ever remember seeing on TV. And it was even before I started watching regularly. Dead Man, he was one of my favorites. And here's a side note: when I did my taxes, so Erwin R. Schaster wouldn't come after me or call me out in a promo and call me a tax cheat, even though Canada. And I was buying my tickets for Niagara Falls Comic Con, and if the listeners are going, hey, come look for me. And I saw in the ticket section, Undertaker photo op. Yes, please. And I will get so excited I'll probably trip over the lighting fixtures and cause a fire, and then his Dead Man Magic will just strike me down with lightning. So, yeah. Moving on here, I thought he had the Survivor Series. Taker has a habit of being buried alive at Survivor Series. It's happened before. Like, Wade Barrett, I think it was a match against somebody, but Wade Barrett and the Nexus came out, put him in the grave. Yeah, nothing came of that. I liked how, Taker was starting the mind games at the Royal Rumble. Like, I think it was number 13 or something, because, of course, Gong, Booker T eliminates Kane. Paul Bearer. Like, I just, in my notes, I just have, oh yes, OMG, 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 OMG. And Finger 11's amazing, Slow Chemical, Kane theme, it's a guilty pleasure. And the image of New York City burning in that Kane's entrance. Like, that is some cool editing right there. And every time I hear the gong, every time, even me approaching 35, goosebumps, just hair stands up. Kane is in absolute denial. You're not real! And, yeah, it was, pure nostalgia, and I think that's how it was supposed to be booked. We got the Dead Man, let's go on.
Indeed, we go on to the main event, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed for the World Heavyweight Championship. Triple H defending against not one, but two men in the form of HBK, Shawn Michaels, and the Rabid Wolverine, Chris Benoit. And as I promised, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Fretz, take it away, this matchup.
Okay. I'll get the real talk after this match because it has to do with the ending. So we have Hunter and HBK had a draw at the Royal Rumble, which was BS. Benoit lasting 62 minutes in the Royal Rumble, a record that stood for quite some time. And, it was going to be versus Triple H, but HBK just has to insert himself, put his nose in Triple H's business. And I see that right here. I'm getting parallels with the Benoit and the Daniel Bryan booking, and even Kofi. And I hate that this match and this part of the year was removed from history because, I'm gonna talk Benoit here. So with HBK, I still had residual heat from 1997 because I'm a Canadian, but I am over it. And his redemption story and his how he became a Christian is just inspiring. Being one myself. Triple H having the heel heat. I didn't really write a lot about this match because I just sat and enjoyed it. We had chops. I'm immediately reminded of the Four Horsemen because Ric Flair. Around this time, I think HBK earned his moniker Mr. WrestleMania. He does the kip up. We see an Air Canada and a kick out. We see a DDT, superplexes, and HBK goes for a German suplex on Angle and gets booed. But what is Angle? Benoit, my God. What does Benoit do? Well, he hits a hat trick of Germans, and then they, I think, reference Edmonton or hockey or something like that. Cheap plug, Edmonton Oilers, Wayne Gretzky. Air Canada again, they reference the Dynamite Kid. Everyone gets bloody, sweet chin music, and, a kick out. We see Triple H preventing a tap out to Shawn Michaels, who's locked in the crossface. There's a table spot where there's going to be a German suplex. Oh my God. But no, it was a D-Generation X double suplex to the table on Benoit, and that wrote him off to have a little bit of a nap. So they can come into the match, and HBK eats a pedigree. There's Benoit interferes there. He fights back hard. He locks in the sharpshooter. Finally locking in the crossface, and your new World Heavyweight Champion is Chris Benoit. And immediately, as soon as he gets the title, he starts crying. I'm getting feels enough already. Eddie comes out. Everyone's bawling. They're hugging. They're having a good time. And I'm just going to get into some brief real talk here. So between about, I'd say, 01 to 07, Chris Benoit was my very favorite wrestler. What he did, how he ended his life and the life of his family was awful. It was unforgivable. It was tragic. Honestly, it was hard for me to let go of. I'm going to put this behind me for a second. We all know that Jimmy Snuka was a murderer. And, yeah. So 2004, around this time, I was going through a bit of a personal rough patch. I was drinking heavily. I've never been diagnosed, but I think I was depressed. Didn't help that my dad was having health problems at the time. I kind of wanted to die a little bit. But in full circle motion, Dave's basement, Dave's house, is also the place I became a Christian. Best full circle ever. And it was through Dave's dad, actually. And when I was a kid, Dave invited me out to... Do you have Awana where you are? Or know what it is?
I think I know what it is, yes.
Yeah, well, it was Dave, when he was a kid, invited me out to Awana, and then it was years later with his dad. Best full circle ever, and you know what? Take a shot. And I was in his basement alone. He was already gone to work. Carl, his dad, had already gone to bed and say, "Hey, just leave when it's over." As soon as I saw Benoit win, I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to start crying here." Eddie and Benoit both gone. It's devastating. But hey, this WrestleMania was truly the beginning of a new era.
Yes, I definitely do agree with that.
JR was just losing his voice. He was probably crying himself. Whew, hell of a show. hell of a match.
Definitely.
And I hate that it's just erased, but I understand.
Yeah, I cannot say it's any better myself when it does come to the whole Chris Benoit deal. Because a lot of people will definitely ask the question, why do you still talk about it even after everything he did? Because I'm celebrating and I'm talking about Benoit the wrestler, not Benoit the person. So this is kind of one of those things where it is still very controversial, but at the same time, you can't just erase everything that he did. Yes, what he did at the end of his life, very unforgivable. Very much deserves to be, eradicated. But everything that he did in wrestling definitely was one of those things that's very hard to overlook. And this matchup here between Benoit, HBK, and Triple H is one of those matches that it definitely does stand out as one of the best matches of all time. The story was great. The wrestling match was just absolutely phenomenal. A lot of people were not expecting it to be as good as it did. You mentioned a couple of spots here and there that were just absolutely wonderful. Shawn and Triple H got busted open. There was a spot where Benoit had the sharpshooter locked in on Triple H, and HBK saved the matchup by just super kicking Benoit's head, which was one of those moments where Jared was like, "Oh my God, his jaw's got to be broken. His jaw's got to be broken." I'm like, dude, the way he landed, it looks like Benoit's head almost got decapitated, and just the ending, the full circle deal where we see Benoit locking in the cross face to Triple H, and we think like, okay, it's going to be over, it's going to be over. Nope, he's going to reach the rope, he's going to reach the ropes, does a roll, Benoit locks it back in, and just those moments where it is one of those things where you just feel the emotion, you feel the anticipation before Triple H, taps out. You just feel that deal where it's like, oh, come on, we want to see the tap out, we want to see the tap out. And it's almost like you're lending your strength to Benoit, being like, we want, like, we're basically, cheering for you. We want to help you win this title off of Triple H, who we've hated for years. And finally, Triple H taps out. Everybody's literally just gasping for air. And just one of the biggest reactions that you'll see at a WrestleMania of Benoit, of course, as he said, holding the title above his head, of him and Eddie hugging each other. Again, just brought tears to my eyes. And just really made it one of the best deals. And honestly, I thought that was going to be a recurring theme every WrestleMania, where the world champion, the WWE champion, they're just going to stand in the ring, kind of celebrating. But that dream kind of went to a screeching halt when WrestleMania 21 came around. But now looking back at it, it's like, I understand it now. Yeah, honestly, it was a really good matchup. A+, best matchup of the night. It was one of those things where it was like, you had Kurt and Eddie. How are you going to follow this up? Oh, with a triple threat match with these guys. No, I got you. It was pretty good. I will say this. So for final grading on this event, I definitely want to go back to my WrestleMania 17 prediction. I want to bump that from a B+ to an A- because it was very well done. And I want to give the B+ to WrestleMania 20. A lot of things that happened during this event definitely had the nostalgia feel. It had the feeling that, you wanted to be a wrestling fan and you wanted to enjoy it. And it did have that. We had Christian versus Chris Jericho, which was great. The Rock and Sock versus Evolution match was great. We had, a great women's title matchup. We had the two great headline main events in Eddie versus Kurt, and the triple threat match for the world title were great. Obviously, the biggest issue of this event is that it got so crowded by so many people. It was literally like, hey, jump in the pool. Okay, time to get out of the pool. And the thing about that is that, hey, even though some of these matches were not exactly memorable or worth watching, they were still 100 times better than that stinker of Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar 1. That's all I have to say about that. So, yeah, honestly, fantastic show, as we said before. Only issue, too many people. If they would have took out a couple of these matches, then it probably would have been a better WrestleMania. But other than that, I can't complain about it. My first WrestleMania that I ever saw, it was great, and it was one of those things that kind of started the motion of getting to be a wrestling fan. So, hitting the 15-year marker this year as a wrestling fan, definitely wanted to come back and talk about this because it was absolutely wonderful watching it, where it all began again.
I'm with you there, Nate. I'll give this a solid B. It was decent. It had the lesser said about Goldberg versus Brock, the better. For the short show it was, because WrestleMania this year might be 8.5 hours, and after doing an 8-hour shift at work, that might be a bit much. Just even having nostalgia for something that when I was turning 20 is weird. And I even liked the theme song. It was by Drowning Pool, even though it didn't have original singer Dave Williams, because he passed away in 2002, like not long after WrestleMania X8, which I reviewed. Not cheap plug. But we had the beginning, like the genesis of John Cena, and looking back on some of these names, like it's depressing looking at some of the names that are no longer with us, like Jindrak and what is it, like Mean Gene and Bobby and all these people. But it's also nice to look back and, like, everyone talks about, Attitude Era was so good, it was so good. No, Attitude Era was weird. We had Giving Birth to Hands. We had Mark Henry and a transvestite. We had Hose. But this was, what, Ruthless Aggression?
Yeah, it was still within the Ruthless Aggression era, quote unquote.
Yeah, I'm all for it. And just we had, Christian and Jericho, not just because my Canadian bias, but these two guys can put a good match into their sleep. And the nostalgia of, evolution of Rock and Sock took me back to high school right there. Like, oof. Good show. Like, the only stinkers, I think, were the tag team matches. I think they just say, we need to get all the tag teams on, but you only have, like, 2 good tag teams. Like, you have Haas and Benjamin, like, criminally underrated, amazing tag team, and then Bashams were, like, in-ring competitors, solid. And on Raw, you had the Dudley Boys, but they were at the end of their contract here, so they were about to win the tag titles and then lose them to Paul London and Billy Kidman. So, yeah. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed going back to this. Like, when we were talking about reviewing this, I was like, 20, huh? I'm like, did I like that one? I'm going to have to go back, because I still have my VCR, so, yep, good time. B.
Definitely a fun time, you guys. So that's going to wrap it up for the Full Circle podcast, at least for now. We definitely wanted to talk about 2 great WrestleMania events. So thank you guys for listening into this. And Mr. Fretz, thank you for being a part of this. And welcome aboard the Game Changer Podcast /network. It's definitely going to be a huge game changer once we launch Patreon on April 1st, you guys. It's only a few weeks away. And no, this is not going to be an April Fool's Day deal.
Absolutely, man. I'm really looking forward to it. I have a couple of ideas up my sleeve, and they don't involve wrestling. So, yeah.
So
I'll leave it at that.
Well, let me put it like this: if there's ever a time you actually tried to do a review on Sonic games, I actually kind of want to be in on that, because I've seen a lot of gameplays for certain Sonic games. Main one that kind of comes to mind is Sonic Boom. Oh my God, was that just?
Nope.
That was rough.
We'll pin in that Sonic one. I'll hold you to it for sure.
All right, so guys, we are going to wrap up this edition of the Game Changer Podcast, Full Circle Edition. Mr. Fretz, it's time for you to do your cheap plugs. How can people get in contact with you, and how can they observe the wonderful content that you create?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at TheLegendaryJF. I am on Facebook at James Aaron Fretz, but let's face it, Facebook sucks. DM me on Twitter, and I'll get back to you whenever. Facebook Messenger, yeah, sure. I'll add you if you're not a CLB. I've been blogging with Rant with Ant, like my Wrestlemania WordPress site is going to be no longer, and I'm moving on to rantwithant.com, be the brand. my podcast, Fretzelmania, that's Fretzle Mania, is on Anchor.fm. It's on Stitcher, Breaker, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and like 6 other things that I don't know exist. So, yeah, if you go on Apple or Anchor.fm, you'll find it there. Give me a 1-star review. And, yeah, there we go. I'm tweeting about wrestling. I'm tweeting about the Toronto Maple Leafs or games or whatever. So, follow me there.
Quite a bit, you guys. And you know where to find us on Twitter, Facebook. Everywhere you need to know is in the description. And guys, be sure to listen to us on a lot of great deals, including YouTube, as well as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com. Here are home field deals since day one. And, of course, SoundCloud. So, for Mr. Fretz, I've been Nate the Effing Great, and we are here to shock the system and change the game. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one, and we will talk to you guys in a later episode. Bye-bye.
Shock the system.